Hello and welcome. Kidney Cancer Canada is excited and grateful to be working with Elixir Kitchen again. We always have a great time and we always learn something new. I hope this presents that opportunity for you. The Community Connections Edition is an excellent way for patients, caregivers, and the cancer community to share information. I will be back a little bit later to offer more information about Kidney Cancer Canada. But first, we would like to show you a portion of a webinar we offered on mindfulness and mental health, featuring Dr. Linda Carlson of the Tom Baker Cancer Center and the University of Calgary. You will find the complete webinar on our website under past events, www.kidneycancercanada.ca. And following the video with Dr. Carlson, we would like to offer some simple yoga stretches and moves to help with relaxation, stress relief, and good health practices. One of our patient supporters and volunteer, Nancy, will lead us through this session. Thank you, Nancy. I know this has been an important part of your healthy practices. Get comfortable, and I hope you enjoy. Thank you.
So this is a wonderful book that I recommend by Lorenzo Cohen, who's a colleague of mine. It's called Anti-Cancer Living, and he talks about the mix of 6 protective factors. So one of these is diet. There's much you can do to improve your diet. For example, eating lots of fruits and vegetables, cutting out sugar and processed foods, that kind of thing, that will improve not only your mood, but also your health. We know that physical activity is important and staying active, getting out for walks, I don't know what the weather's like in the rest of Canada, but here we've got a bit of an easing of the cold weather. Getting out there, even in your house, up and down the stairs, if you have a treadmill or an exercise bike, physical activity is really useful. Stress management, I'm going to talk about this, how mindfulness is really one of the best tools for stress management, and it's one of the best tools to help you sleep better at night. And these are important elements for your well-being. Love and support. I'm not going to talk a lot about that, but we know that having close social connections and feeling connected with other people is essential. So if you are having a hard time connecting with your loved ones, if they live far away and you haven't seen them, make sure you get on Zoom, get on FaceTime, and really try and pick up the phone, right? Stay connected. And avoiding environmental toxins. So these are things that you can eliminate in your environment, like certain kinds of plastics, pesticides, sort of thing. The book goes into great detail on the evidence for why all of these things are important. I really recommend it. So I'm going to focus on stress management and sleep a little bit through mindfulness. So the question might arise to you, what is mindfulness? It's a popular term in the media and the lay press, but what really does it mean? Here's an example of what you might see in the media on Time magazine. So I always joke that there's a lot of misunderstandings about what mindfulness is, and Time magazine would have you believe if you practice mindfulness, you're going to turn into a beautiful, serene young woman. Sorry, that's not the case. What is mindfulness really? It's paying attention on purpose in the present moment with an open and accepting attitude. Well, that's simple, right? We can all pay attention. Mindfulness is 2 things. It's a way of being in the world, so we can be more or less mindful at any given time. And it's also a practice and a skill that we actually need to intentionally cultivate, because our minds aren't that way naturally. We're more like this cartoon, right? So who's more mindful, the human or the dog? The human's mind is all over the place, but the dog is in the present moment. And it turns out the dog is probably happier too. But we need to train our minds to be able to stay in the present moment, because we're so used to dwelling in the past and the future that we've forgotten how to do that. And this is the practice of mindfulness, an illustration of it, setting aside time. Obviously, you're not going to always be looking out over the ocean and a beautiful sunset, but we do need to intentionally cultivate the skill of mindfulness. So it's just like learning to play tennis or piano. We have to practice it to get better. So if you're not paying attention in the present moment, what's your mind doing instead? And research shows we have anywhere from 50 to 70,000 individual thoughts every day. And they've done studies where they ping people on their cell phones or give them pagers throughout the day for many days and ask them, what are you thinking about? Where's your mind? Is it, in the present moment on what you're doing, or are you daydreaming? And how are you feeling? And it turns out that almost half the time we're not in the present moment. So our mind's wandering, we're thinking about something other than what we're doing. And at the same time, people are happier when they're in the present moment, no matter what they're doing. right? And so why would that be? Like, where are our minds going when they're not in the present moment? And I've alluded to this. You might be like this woman whose mind is in the past. And she's going, oh, why did I say that or do that? Or how did this happen to me? And she's having all kinds of regrets. She's feeling down and depressed and sad, angry maybe even that things didn't work out her way. So she's dwelling in the past. Or maybe you're like this guy, right? You can see what he's doing. He's worrying about the future. What am I going to do? What if this happens? What if that? How am I going to get through all the things I have to do? And he's just getting himself all worked up and stressed and worried and anxious, right? So those people aren't particularly happy because they're not in the present moment. So mindfulness is just about being aware of and cultivating the skills of being in the now rather than yesterday or tomorrow. So it's pretty simple. So we can think of 3 components to mindfulness. We call them the IAA, so intention, attention, and attitude. So intention is why we practice mindfulness, and we do it on purpose with a specific intention or purpose in mind, which could be really simple, just I want to be awake and aware in the present, I want to be there for my life. But it can also be more specific, that you want to sleep better or cope with cancer or whatever it is. So that's motivation that keeps you going and practicing it. The what of mindfulness is attention training. So I mentioned this is training, this is a skill. You need to practice this on a regular basis so that your mind actually is, your brain actually changes when you practice mindfulness. It grows new neuronal pathways, new connections in your brain that support happiness and the ability to be in the moment. And the other pathways that are stronger maybe now that go to depression and sadness and rumination and worry become weaker. But we have to practice the what of attention training. And it's also important how we do this. So that's the attitude, because we can be really hard on ourselves, because it's hard to do mindfulness at first because, to pay attention, because you'll notice your mind all over the place and you're judging. And so we have to be very patient and kind and say, wow, I had no idea that this was what my mind was up to. Isn't that funny? Isn't that interesting? And really accepting our experience. So there's certain attitudes of mindfulness that are important, and I won't spend a long time on these, but non-judging, so accepting our experience with patience, right? This idea of letting go of things we can't control, and non-striving. So non-striving is about, it's kind of paradoxical, right? Because if you want to, relaxation and sleep are 2 great examples, right? If you want to say, I want to relax now, I have to try harder to relax, right? It's not going to happen. And the same thing, I need to sleep, I really need to sleep. It's really important that I sleep. Well, you're going to be up all night. So you have to let go of wanting something so badly and just being in the moment, trusting the practice. And beginner's mind is sort of being open to things and seeing yourself as if for the first time. And I always joke and say, these attitudes might seem kind of far out, but you could practice the opposite, and that would turn you into a judgmental, impatient, rejecting, grasping, striving, suspicious know-it-all, right? And maybe you know people like that. Maybe you are like that, but it's not a fun way to be. It's basically a recipe for stress, right? And so we talked about these myths around mindfulness. So it's important to think about what mindfulness is actually not. And it's not the same as relaxation, although you may feel relaxed. It's not hypnosis, which is useful for some context, but it's not goal-directed and sort of that absorption that you get in hypnosis. It's not a prayer or a religious practice, although it is compatible with every religious practice or any religious practice you may have. And really importantly, it's not clearing your mind of all thoughts, like the women on the Time magazine. It's not always peaceful and calm. So this is the biggest misconception. Mindfulness is just about awareness of your experience, your thoughts, your feelings, your bodily sensations, your level of tension as it's happening, right? So we can be mindful of being sad, anxious, angry. We can be experiencing those things and still be mindful of them, still be aware of them. And when we become aware of what our experience is, then we have a window or an opportunity to change the way we respond to these things that are always bombarding us from the outside. So that's really important. And that's why people often get frustrated when they start to practice mindfulness, because they're like, well, my mind's all over the place. I'm doing it wrong. It's not working. No, it is working. If you notice your mind wandering and you bring it back, every time you bring your mind back to your focus, which may be your body or your breath or whatever, every time you draw your mind back, you're strengthening a pathway in your brain, that the ability to to pay attention in the moment. So why do we practice mindfulness? Because we recognize the only certainty in life is change. Things are constantly changing, but we don't like that. The unwillingness to acknowledge and act upon this reality is, some say, the root cause of all suffering. It's trying to force things to be a certain way or stay a certain way or go a certain way. It causes suffering because it's fruitless. So mindfulness is the process by which we face and accept the inevitability of change. So here's a great poem that I really like about, being in the moment and what your life is like if you can be in the moment. I went to the woods because I wished to live deliberately. You don't have to go to the woods to live deliberately, but you can do this anywhere. To front only the essential facts of life. See if I could not learn what it had to teach, and not, when I came to die, discover that I had not lived. Right? And if we're not paying attention to our lives as they're happening, that's the inevitable conclusion. You come to the end of your life and go, what happened? I missed it, right? Or I was so busy worrying that I missed all the beautiful moments. And that would be a tragedy. So here we'll just, I know I started late and I don't want to go over, but I do want to take a moment to just do a little check-in, a mindful breathing exercise with y'all. So we'll just take a minute and you can look at this beautiful wave, or you can shut your eyes. And I don't want you to do anything to change your breath or anything. I just want you to pay attention to your breath. So I'm going to ask you to put one hand here on your chest and one hand lower down around your just below your belly button in your abdomen. Notice any judgmental thoughts about the size or texture of your abdomen, let those go. And we're going to just pay attention to our breath. So don't change it at all, just pay attention, be mindful of it. And you can allow your eyes to close if you want. You can sit up a bit straighter and just feel the breath coming in and out. It's going whether you pay attention or not, right? So inhale. Feel the movement and notice where, and then exhale. So notice where in the body you feel the movement and which of your hands is moving. So as you breathe in, how long is the breath? How smooth? Where do you feel the movement in your upper or lower arm? And then as you transition to breathing out, where is that movement? Again, don't change your breath. Don't try to make anything happen. When your mind wanders, which it probably will, that's okay. Just bring it back to being a breath detective. So what can you notice? What can you learn about what happens in your body as you breathe? And if you find you notice tension in your neck or shoulders or your belly, you can choose to release it if you want. So just a couple more breaths, paying attention and noticing too, sometimes what happens is as you pay attention to your breath, without trying to, sometimes it changes in and of itself. And usually the change that happens is that it becomes a bit more calm and slow, and you might feel a bit more relaxed or not. So let's stop that now, drop our hands. We can discuss this at the end, what the experience was like for you, but let's carry on now. So I want to tell you about a program called Mindfulness-Based Stress Reduction that trains people in this skill or this capacity to be mindful. It was developed by a guy named Jon Kabat-Zinn. You can see his book there. It's called Full Catastrophe Living. It was the late 1970s he started doing these programs, and he really saw an opportunity to combine stress reduction, standard stress reduction, with mindfulness meditation techniques. And so he developed this structured 8-week program that he started offering at his hospital. And since that time, it's really taken off. And many of you may have heard of MBSR, or if not, there are programs available all over Canada. Most major cities have them. Many cancer centers have them. And there's been a huge amount of research now showing that this program is very effective for helping people cope with a wide range of physical and psychological disorders, including cancer. There's a wonderful research website called AMRA that has all the research if you're interested. But I'm just going to show you a little bit about the scientific research. And this is not in Google or something. This is in the scientific studies, the journal articles. And this just shows you the increasing interest in mindfulness over the years. So these are journal articles with mindfulness in the title. And you can see that it was around 2000, things began to take off. And now, so there was, 20 articles or 10 articles that year. Ours was one of them. Our first paper on mindfulness for people with cancer came out in the year 2000. And now there's I think it says in 2019, there was 1,203 articles published. And these are all scientific applications of mindfulness interventions and the neuroscience of mindfulness. So if you're interested, there's much you can read about that. So I'm going to tell you about our program for cancer patients, survivors, and family members. And the question is, why would this be useful? I kind of alluded to this, but the spider's dilemma here kind of illustrates it. He says, my life's a mess, doc. You got to help me. I just seem to be spinning out of control, right? So that's how cancer patients often feel. And we call it the illness experience. These elements of loss of control, like I talked about earlier with COVID, there's combined with the life threat and maybe having to take a closer look at our mortality for the first time, which can be a wake-up call and a good exercise, but it's also frightening and upsetting for many people. There's this loss of routine and predictability and certainty. You have to take time off work. You don't know what maybe your prognosis is going to be down the road, if it might come back. All sorts of feelings of sadness and grief, loss, anger, depression. There may be shame, self-blame, guilt, and symptoms like pain, fatigue, sleeplessness, fear of recurrence. So no matter how good the prognosis, it's often there for people is it going to come back? When's it going to come back? How is it going to come back? So they're hypervigilant. But it turns out that these approaches to mindfulness, the skills in regulating emotion, attitudes of acceptance, letting go, there's a real strong emphasis on self-compassion. These things really help people cope with all these difficult things that are part and parcel of dealing with cancer. So here's our program here called Mindfulness-Based Cancer Recovery. We started doing this in 1996 with some of my colleagues. And in 1998, we put together the MBSR model from John Kabat-Zinn, and we devised our own program at the Tom Baker Cancer Center that's open to all cancer patients and family members. And it's done in groups of 15 to 20 people over the years. So we've had thousands of people go through. And we have research studies in our program. So it started as an 8-week program. Now it's 9 weeks and about 2-hour weekly meetings. There's usually 1 or 2 instructors. And there's always a discussion around, what is mindfulness, attitudes of mindfulness, stress reduction, mind-body medicine, and mind-body connection. And then we do mindful movement, yoga, and meditation practices, different types. And there's a booklet, and people do daily practice at home to develop the skill of mindfulness. They keep track of how much time they spend, and we have a longer retreat near the end of the program. If you want to read about the program, Michael Speck and I wrote this book that goes through it week by week, everything in the program. It has guided meditations. It's patient-centered, and it's for people to do a home study of their own. It's in a whole bunch of different languages: French, Dutch, Spanish, German, a couple of versions of Chinese, and some other ones as well. So it's highly available for people. The types of meditation practices we train people in this program are quite variable. So one's called the body scan. You see all those people lying on the floor. They're not sleeping, they're busily scanning their bodies. So they're taking their attention from their toes up to their head very slowly, learning to tap into what kind of sensations we're actually feeling in the body, reconnect with the body through the body scan. And there's sitting meditation. You see the guy in the chair, you don't have to sit all tangled up like a pretzel to do meditation. We might do walking practice. You see the people slowly walking in a line. It's just about paying attention as you're walking. Open awareness, which is sort of opening up to all of our experience. We use imagery like mountains and lakes, and we practice loving kindness, which is a type of meditation practice too. And there's also an element of yoga, which we call mindful movement, because really it's just paying attention to how we move our bodies and how that feels. And for people who've been through cancer, it's really important to get to know your body again, refriend it in a way, because things may have changed through your treatments and surgeries, and your level of energy is lower, your flexibility, your strength. So it's a way to rebuild that and to reconnect. So I'll summarize our research results really quickly. And we've been doing these studies, as I said, since the year 2000. So first we looked at symptoms that people were suffering from and measured these before and after and compared to other groups who weren't doing the program, and saw big improvements in people's symptoms of stress. So this includes like muscle tension, as well as things like racing heart and, the ability to focus and sleep and all those things. We saw improvements in mood, like anger, anxiety, depression symptoms. Again, people sleeping better, less fatigue, and then less of that rumination and worry as well. And we've looked at partners who participate, and they also show improvements. And then we looked more at, can we not only decrease symptoms, but help people thrive, improve their psychological well-being? And we did see improvements in overall quality of life, spirituality, which is a sense of really just feeling connected with something larger than oneself, post-traumatic growth, which is kind of this idea of finding a benefit in a traumatic experience. And so the spirituality and post-traumatic growth are around finding like purpose and meaning in life and living in an authentic way, and using the cancer experience as a catalyst to examine one's values and how you want to live your life, and overall improvements in how mindful people are. And we've also taken all sorts of biological samples and looked at things like blood pressure, which decreases over the course of the program. We look at the stress hormone cortisol and take saliva samples throughout the day at home for many days, and we see changes in cortisol patterns consistent with sort of decreased stress. We see less inflammation in the immune system, a stronger immune system. We've even looked at telomeres, which are the little tips of chromosomes right within the DNA. And one of our studies was the first ever to show that these kinds of practices, mindfulness, could affect what's happening in the telomeres. And media was really excited about that. And we see there was a number of articles. So this one from the National Post says, yoga and mindfulness practices assist breast cancer recovery at a cellular level. And lots of articles around the world saying world first evidence suggests that meditation alters cancer survivor cells. And this one I got a kick out of through Scientific American, changing our DNA through mind control. We're not actually doing mind control, but we are changing your DNA. So it really gets in the body, these practices. So what I'm going to do now to finish is to share with you a number of really simple breathing practices that we do in our program that we call minis. And these are things people can use anytime. So first I have to tell you a little bit how the nervous system works. So we can break the nervous system down into things that are voluntary. So for example, or somatic, if I want to raise my arm, I say I'm going to raise my arm, and I raise my arm. You're doing that by voluntary control, right? But there's lots of things in your nervous system that happen automatically through the autonomic nervous system. So you don't have to tell your heart to beat. You don't have to remind yourself to breathe. All your, glands are secreting hormones, all your organs are doing their job, they're digesting food. You don't have to think about that. It's controlled by the autonomic nervous system. And within the autonomic nervous system, there's two what we call arms or branches. So they're called sympathetic. I'll do sympathetic here. So sympathetic is your fight or flight, your arousal arm of the autonomic nervous system. And that's like when, we get shocked, something happens and you have that automatic reaction. You're driving your car and somebody or an animal runs out in front, you slam on the brakes, right? So your heart's racing, your palms are sweaty, your muscles are tense. That's the sympathetic nervous system that's kicked in, that fight or flight. And we get this often throughout the day for other things as well. Thoughts we have that are worrying can also trigger our sympathetic nervous system. And so when that's up, our muscles are tense. It's not very good for us to be like that for a long time. And the other branch is called parasympathetic. This is the relaxation arm. And so when we take deep breaths, when we're resting, it activates the parasympathetic. And so we want to find a balance, right? We don't want to have too much energy or too much relaxation all the time. We want to kind of balance those out. And the way that we can do that, it turns out, is by utilizing the breath. So even though the breath happens automatically, it's controlled by the autonomic nervous system, we can also control it ourselves. And so it just so happens to turn out that the two parts of the breath, the inhalation and the exhalation, are associated with the two parts of the autonomic nervous system. So the inhalation is more energizing. It's associated with a sympathetic fight or flight response, right? So when you think about it, if you're anxious, you're more like, you're breathing in a lot more than you're breathing out. And the exhalation is associated with the relaxation response. So when it's all over and done with, we take a deep, big sigh, right? Where it's like, we take a big exhalation And as we exhale, that decreases the heart rate and stimulates the nerves of the parasympathetic nervous system to relax us. So normally throughout the day, what's healthy is a balance between those two. And so these ways of breathing that I'm going to teach you help you balance the breath. And the first thing we need to do before we start, we're going to follow this count and this image of the wave. And before we do that, we have to allow the breath to become a bit deeper. And so we're going to let the belly soften and sit up. If you're slumped, just try and sort of sit up upright. Put your feet on the floor, flat on the floor, and it might help to put your hand on your belly. But we're going to try to get the breath long and slow up to a count of 4. And we don't want to force it. We don't want you to start feeling lightheaded or dizzy. So if you do, just stop. But the idea here is to let the breath naturally become slower. And then you can use this image of the wave so that as you breathe in, it's 1, 2, 3, 4. And as you breathe out, 4, 3, 2, 1. 1, 2, 3, 4. And find your own pace that's comfortable for your breath. So you can close your eyes and visualize that wave, or just look at the picture and try it for a few breaths. And as you exhale, feel your shoulders dropping down, your belly dropping down as you exhale, and then see how smooth you can make the transition to the inhale. All right, so now opening your eyes. I find that really feels lovely and relaxing. I hope you were able to make it work with the rhythm. It takes a bit of practice sometimes, so it'd be nice to hear from you in the chat box or afterwards how that feels. This one's a little trickier for some people. We call it the square breath. It's still balanced, but here you get a box or a square. We're going to hold or pause with our lungs full. So we're going to breathe in, say it can be a square or a rectangle. So if you breathe in, say for 4, and you hold for 4, that's more of a square, but you can also breathe in for 4 and just hold a little bit for maybe 2, and then breathe out for 4 and hold at the bottom with your lungs mostly empty. So a tip here is when you pause, you want to have your lungs mostly full, or at the bottom mostly empty, but not entirely, because then you might feel like you need to gasp for breath. So try it. And visualize that square or that rectangle as you're breathing in and out, and add that little hold or pause. All right, so let's open our eyes and come back from that one. I'd be curious to see how that feels for you. So often people say, oh, they didn't like the holding at one end or the other, or they liked it better at one end or the other. And there's a reason for that. They feel different for sure. And the reason is, if you think back to what I just said about the in-breath and the out-breath and whether they're relaxing or energizing, when you hold after the in-breath, sort of with your lungs full and you're pausing, that's emphasizing the sympathetic, or the energizing part of the breath. So I can even feel my heart accelerating a bit then. It's a little bit more anxiety provoking. And then when you hold at the bottom with your lungs empty, you're emphasizing more the exhalation. So that tends to be a more calming feeling once you get used to that pause. So the next one we're going to do takes advantage of that pause after the out breath and eliminates the pause after the in breath. So this is meant to be relaxing because more than half the time it's emphasizing the out breath. So we'll breathe in for 4, directly out for 4, and then just hold the pause after the out breath with your lungs mostly empty. So it's a triangle you're making. So try that. And again, you want to get a comfortable count. All right, let's open our eyes. Hopefully you got the hang of that. And again, I'd be curious to hear how that felt. And then the last one is the opposite. It's an invigorating triangle breath. So the emphasis is on the inhalation and the pause with your lungs full. And then so let's do it this way. So we're breathing in, we're holding with our lungs full, and then we're breathing out, and then in again immediately and holding. So try that. And so because the emphasis is on the in-breath and the holding with your lungs full, and keep going, it tends to feel a little more energizing. So I want to end with you feeling, not too sleepy. All right, so let's come back from that one. So we've called these all mini exercises, mini breathing exercises. And, I would really encourage you, there are things you can do anywhere, anytime. You don't have to close your eyes. You can do them when you're in sort of stressful situations, or you're waiting, you're having to get a blood sample drawn, or you're at a red light, or you're in line at the grocery store, or you're in a situation where you're starting to feel worked up, or you're anxious, or you're getting angry with someone. Take a pause, do some of these mini breaths, and you'll find that often, once you get the hang of them, they can really take down your level of anxiety and arousal, so you feel much more calm, and you have more capacity to cope with whatever's coming your way. So I'm just going to summarize what we talked about. Mindfulness is present moment, non-judgmental awareness with acceptance of whatever's happening, because it's happening. It's a way of being in the world that's cultivated through intentional meditation practice. And so programs like MBSR and MBCR, that's the cancer one, they train people in mindfulness and help decrease a range of symptoms like anxiety, stress, depression. And mindful awareness, using things like the mini exercises, can help people cope with everyday stressors.
Hi, my name is Nancy. I have kidney cancer and I have been living with it for the past 8 years. As many of you can imagine, living with the cancer diagnosis can have its very stressful times, and it certainly did for me. It caused a whole gamut of emotions, ranging from fear, anxiety, stress, anger, and depression. Um, Early on, after I was diagnosed, I realized that my old coping mechanisms were not working, and I was going to have to develop some new strategy to help deal with the stress and something that I was facing for the rest of my life. So I remembered that I had done yoga in the past and had really enjoyed it, and it had really brought me a calm, relaxing, peaceful feeling. So I decided to uh, take that up again, and I did that along with my meditation, my guided meditation to start with. Um, and through that practice, I began to develop a feeling that I had never felt before. It was a grounded feeling. Um, the yoga helped bring a lot of that outside world, well, it actually pushed it away and helped me become more centered and in tune with myself and my body, and more peaceful in the end. So today, I was hoping to share a little bit of the yoga with you, so that maybe you might feel some changes as well. Um, Yoga is like a sister to meditation. it helps to bring the body in with the mind. And so it's a whole practice. So I thought we could do some yoga on a chair today. That would, if anybody has a desire to participate and try a few moves, get yourself a chair, preferably, well, with a back, solid back, on a surface that's not going to slide. We want to be safe, and something where you can have your feet firmly on the ground. If your chair is too tall, maybe get some books underneath or something so that your feet can touch the ground, and no arms. And we'll get started. So I like to close my eyes when I do it. You have a choice, especially if you feel uneasy or unbalanced on your chair. And I just want you to close your eyes for the very start. And just relax. And bring your awareness to your breath. And take some nice deep breaths in and out. And in and out. Just feeling where you are right now on the earth, with your feet on the floor, firmly grounded. And let go of all those other thoughts that are in your mind. They'll be there later. And just really try to focus on your body. Try and bring some awareness to any areas that might be talking to you right now, that might be uncomfortable, that might be in pain. And give that a little bit of extra attention. And try and relax those areas. And bring your breath there. And when you're ready, we're going to drop our heads forward. And we're going to slowly tip our head, roll our head to the right, bringing your ear towards your shoulder, and just feeling a nice gentle stretch in the left side of your neck. And then slowly, you can drop your head again, bring it around to your left shoulder, and feeling a nice gentle stretch in the right side of your neck. If anything hurts, don't push so hard. Just ease back a little bit. We're not here to injure or get hurt ourselves. Just do what's comfortable to you. We'll bring your head back down. Feel a nice stretch in your back and around and to your right shoulder again. And back down. To your left shoulder. And feel the stretch. Let's try out just one more time at your own pace. All right. And when you're all done, bring your head back to the center. Take a deep breath. And bring your arms up above your head. And do a nice big stretch. And bring your arms back down. And up. When you think about it in a day, and down. We spend most of our time all hunched over forward. It's not very often we actually take the time to lift our bodies up and just stretch the spinal column, giving some space to everything. And down. We'll do it 2 more times. Deep breath in and let it go. Okay. And back down. And now in our seats, we're just going to come a little bit forward to the edge of the chair, keeping your hands behind you. We're going to do a chair version of the cat-cow. A lot of you have probably heard of that one. It's where you expand your chest out with a deep inhale in and an exhale. Roll your pelvis back and let it go. Deep in breath and let it go. This is great for desk workers. Yoga doesn't have to be a formal, we'll do another one. Yoga doesn't have to be a formal practice with a mat whenever you do it. You can even take 10 minutes just when you're at the office and just do a few simple stretches and out. One more in. Deep breath up. And exhale. Okay. Now we're going to turn sideways on our chair. And we're going to reach with our left hand over to the edge of the back of the chair. And we'll bring our right hand to the corner. And we're going to look ahead. And we're going to just do a little bit of a spinal twist. Take a few deep breaths in this position. Excellent. And we'll bring ourselves around to the other side of the chair. Bringing our right hand to the back of the chair, this corner, and the right hand on this corner. Feet flat on the floor, shoulders down, and just feel a twist through your torso and your spine. And breathe. Excellent. We'll come back to the center of our chair. Now we're going to do a modified pigeon pose. That's a twisty one you do on the ground, but it's far more comfortable on a chair, I'll tell you. So you bring your left leg over your right leg and cross your legs. And if you can wrap your leg around more, you can do a little an extra twist, bringing your left foot around your ankle. Otherwise, like this is just fine. We'll bring our arms up and we're going to put our right arm under our left elbow, lifting your shoulder or your elbows as far up to your shoulders as you can. And we'll wrap our hands. And you can see here, you can either bring your hands back to back, or if you can go a little bit further, you can have them in a prayer position. And just remember, breathing brings relaxation. Time brings relaxation. You can't rush. can't rush your muscles just to relax. They do it slowly, and that's why yoga is a practice. And sometimes we do it and sometimes we don't. And we go back a ways, which is what I have done. And you start again. And you just keep practicing. You never really win, but you might feel some changes. And then you bring your arms around, feet back on the floor. And we will put our right leg over our left leg. And if you can wrap your foot around, that's fine. You can try that too. Bring our arms back up, and we'll bring our left arm under our right. And we'll breathe. And we'll unravel ourselves. I'm just going to have a very small sip of water. And if you have some water, you need some, make sure you drink. So we'll bring our right leg over our left. And bring our knee as far down as we can. And this is good for opening up your hips. Feel at my right hip. And if you have anything left in you for stretching, you can bring your chest forward towards your ankle. And just feel the stretch in it's in your gluteus, your butt muscle. And we'll bring our foot back down. And we'll bring our left foot across our knee. And if that's enough, you could just stay there. If that's too much, you can always bring your leg in a little bit so it's not so hard. And just lean forward and feel the stretch. Once again, in the top part of your leg. Relax. And when you're all done, you can sit back in your chair, feet flat on the ground, hands on your knees or wherever they're comfortable. And we'll just finish our practice with a nice shavasana, which if you're doing yoga standing, that's where you're lying on your mat. But we'll just finish sitting on our chair and remembering where we started. Maybe reflecting on where you started today, your practice, and if you feel any subtle changes. I hope you've enjoyed this. Namaste.